The Bahe Formation, dating to the late Miocene, is located in Shaanxi, China, and features a varied lithology including conglomerates, sandstones and mudstones. The formation's 6 identified facies indicate a dynamic environment with active channels, floodplains, and lakes, suggesting a landscape with low-energy conditions and braided to anastomosing rivers. Some turtle fossils have been found, including fragments of shells that barely allow for genus identification and complete shells such as those of a testudo. The geological formation is relatively recent, and many animal genera are contemporary to us, such as Acerorhinus, a genus of hedgehog that is very common today and existed 10 million years ago. Dinocrocuta was a formidable predator and scavenger capable of attacking animals much larger than itself, such as the tusked rhinoceros. Evidence from a Chilotherium skull shows distinctive bite marks from Dinocrocuta, suggesting it preyed on these rhinos, particularly when they were vulnerable. However, the regrowth of bone on the rhino's injuries indicates that the attack was unsuccessful, and the rhino managed to escape and heal. The largest species, Dinocrocuta gigantea, is known to have reached head-to-body length of 2 meters for the largest individuals, with total skull lengths of 45 centimeters. Interestingly, the Miocene tropical plains of China likely resembled today's African savannas, with large herbivores and big feline predators. Miomachairodus was one of the predators in this formation, belonging to a group of felines that became extinct without leaving descendants up to the present day. Among the large herbivores, Tetralophodon, a genus of elephant that may be an ancestor of the elephantids. These animals had a wide distribution ranging from southern Africa to East Asia. They have been suggested to be browsers and mixed feeders based on mesoware analysis. Analysis of tooth wear suggests that these individuals had developed prole movement in the lower jaws, akin to that used by modern elephants, but different from that used by earlier gomphotheres. Acerorhinus had very short legs, more like teleoceras than other Acerorhinines. While most other Acerorhinines were grazers, Acerorhinus had brachiodont teeth which indicate a preference for browsing. Like other Acerorhinines, it was hornless and had tusk-like incisors. The current species of Dicerorhinus is the Sumatran rhinoceros, but its ancestors once lived on the Asian continent before venturing southward. The genus had many species spread over millions of years, and it appears to have been a very abundant group of rhinoceroses. To complete the picture of an African savanna in Miocene China, alongside elephants, felines, and rhinoceroses, there is Chleuastochoerus, which likely occupied the same ecological niche as warthogs. Hipparion was the equine representative of this ecosystem. These animals turned out to be very abundant in this formation, and they primarily fed on grasses. It achieved skeletal maturity and possibly sexual maturity at about 3 years old. Fossils of Hipparion individuals are up to 10 years old at death. Gazelles were also abundant animals in this formation. The genus is still widespread today, but the species Gazella gaudrii appears to have had a range covering all of Asia, indicating that these gazelles were highly adaptable. There were no giraffes yet at this time, but ancestors or cousins that left no descendants. Palaeotragus was one of these representatives, and 2 different species were even found in this same formation. Samotherium is another genus of giraffid with longer legs and neck, allowing it to reach different vegetation and avoid competition with other herbivores in its ecosystem. These were large animals, difficult prey for the few predators of these plains. The Liushu geological formation occurred slightly later, between 11 and 6 million years ago, and is located a bit further east than the previous formation, in what is now the Linxia Basin, in the Gansu Province. The ecosystem in question closely resembled the present-day African savanna, and it was home to species related to elephants, giraffes, rhinoceroses, hyenas and felines. At the end of the Miocene, the climate was warmer than it is today, allowing savannas to spread to higher latitudes than they do now, which explains the similarity between these ecosystems separated by 8 million years. Eryx is a genus of non-venomous snakes, and the species present during this period is the first of the genus, which now includes 13 extant species. Two species of vultures have been found, Gansu and Miosurnia. These birds are essential for a healthy ecosystem, as by eating animal carcasses, they prevent the spread of epidemics. Linxiavis is the most substantial and oldest record of crowned sandgrouse in China, which adds to the rapidly growing avian fauna of the Liushu Formation. It was a part of the diverse Hipparion fauna, which reinforces the consensus that late Miocene Linxia Basin was an arid savanna, associated with the uplift of the Tibetan Plateau. Panraogallus was found to be most closely related to the extant genus Perdix and members of the subfamilies Phasianini. The elongation of the trachea is related to vocal modification, and has happened independently many times among birds, while Panraogallus is the first known pheasant with such an adaptation. Miosurnia is a genus of diurnal owls that hunted small animals hiding in the tall grasses of the Chinese plains during the Miocene. Remains of a pelvis, including a synsacrum, were recovered from mudstone. Based on the size of these remains, Orientornis is believed to have been slightly larger than modern ostrich. When this bird lived, the area is believed to have been either open grasslands or wetlands. Several species of rodents have been found, Ursavus and Pararhizomes, mostly teeth and skulls. The genus Hystrix has also been discovered. It is the porcupine. Being larger in size, these rodents cannot move discreetly, and the back of their body is covered in spines for protection. Skulls of ancient representatives of weasels and badgers have also been found. In life, Ursavus would have been wolf-sized animal and was mainly omnivores or hypocarnivores. Also known as the dawn bear, it is generally taken to be the earliest undisputed bear species. The higher number of fossils in Europe grading toward Eastern Asia make the westward dispersal unlikely. Ictitherium were around 1.2 meters long, and looked more like civets than modern hyenas, possessing a long body with short legs and a possibly short tail. It is speculated that it was an opportunistic feeder, and that it ate plants as well as medium-small mammals and birds. It was a very successful and abundant genus, with multiple fossils often being found at a single site. Hyaenictitherium is another genus of hyena, more closely related to modern hyenas. Two species have been found in this geological formation, but some believe they might belong to two different genera. Dinocrocuta was also present in this formation, and it was a powerful predator of the megafauna in this ecosystem. A skull and jaw from a female Chilotherium bear the distinctive bite marks on the forehead from a Dinocrocuta's teeth, indicating that the rhino was part of the carnivore's diet. It competed with other large predators. The canines of Metailurus are longer than those of even the clouded leopard, but significantly shorter than true saber teeth, and more conical than bladed. The presence of elongated posterior limbs indicate that it had developed jumping skills. This feline was found across almost the entire globe except in South America. Amphimachairodus was about 2 meters long and probably hunted as an ambush predator. Its legs were too short to sustain a long chase, but it most likely was a good jumper. It probably used its canines to cut open the throat of its prey, severing the major arteries and possibly crushing the windpipe. Its teeth were rooted to its mouth and were not as delicate as those of most other saber-toothed cats of the time, which had extremely long canines that hung out of their mouths. The fangs of Amphimachairodus, however, were able to easily fit in its mouth comfortably while being long enough to be effective for hunting. The same species of Tetralophodon was found in this ecosystem. This elephant stood 3.5 meters tall and weighed 10 tons, slightly smaller than modern African elephants. The mandibular symphysis of the lower jaw is typically elongate and bears lower tusks. Konobelodon is suggested to have been a browser, based on dental microwear analysis. The upper tusks were likely used for slicing and scraping, while the lower tusks may have been used for digging. As shovel-tusked Amoebelodonts, it has 2 pairs of tusks, one growing from the upper jaw and a second from the lower. Nestoritherium was a calicother with a particularly short face and was also much smaller than its relatives. This unique morphology likely allowed it to occupy a different ecological niche, such as feeding on vegetation closer to the ground. As an herbivore, Ancylotherium evolved to browse on vegetation on the trees in the grassy savannas of China. With some individuals reaching 2 meters high at the shoulder and a weight of 450 kilograms, it was relatively large, and was built rather like a goat. Individuals varied considerably in size, and the genus may have been sexually dimorphic, like many other calicotheres. Hipparion is another genus common to both formations, but the species have become more diversified. Hipparion generally resembled a smaller version of the modern horse, but was tridactyl, or 3-toed. It had 2 vestigial outer toes on each limb in addition to its hoof. In some species, these outer toes were functional. Hipparion experienced population decline and extinction down a north to south gradient, as did many other Miocene vertebrates. This trend is believed to be due to environmental changes caused by global cooling and decreasing carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. Many species of rhinoceroses have been found in this geological formation, demonstrating how diverse and prosperous these animals were before human expansion across all continents. Today, their numbers are nearly residual. Chilotherium were a group of grazing animals that radiated into several subgenera and species. Their feet were tridactyl and their legs shorter than in related groups. A few of them remained browsers, but most of them were adapted to a grass-based diet, hence the short legs. Their heads were hornless but equipped with tusk-like lower incisors and were held in a horizontal position, in contrast to modern rhinos. Eryx was a precursor to the related Cynotherium and may have been ultimately outcompeted by its descendant. This species is most well known for showing unique sexual dimorphism among rhinos. The male had rugosities present on each zygomatic arch, whereas the females lacked them entirely. This unique feature is virtually unknown among other rhinocerodids. Male are hypothesized to bear it for supporting larger masseteric and temporalis musculature. Unlike modern rhinoceroses, many elasmotherians, like Paralasmotherium, had one or more large, prominent horns on their snouts. These horns were often broad and flat rather than pointed, and in some species, they were significantly large, contributing to their distinctive appearance. The horns of older elasmotherines are present on their nose, whereas the horn of Samotherium's descendant Elasmotherium is present on its forehead. Samotherium shows a unique condition in which its horn is present in an intermediate nasofrontal position. This represents the horn shifting from its ancestral nasal position to the derived frontal position, eventually resulting in the completely frontal restricted position of Elasmotherium. Many species of artiodactyls have been found. Herbivores were very abundant. The plains of these Chinese savannas must have been lush with vegetation to support such diversity. Dicerorhinus stood 70 centimeters tall at the shoulder, the same size as the modern roe deer. Its long skull sported a set of antlers with a thickened base, the first known member of cervids to possess them. The antlers were still quite primitive and had no tines, they were worn only by the males. Like modern deer, Dicerorhinus shed its antlers every year. The main stem was shorter in each new set. The same is seen in modern muntjac. Uprox was some of the earliest types of deer known to have true antlers. It would have resembled a muntjac in size and appearance, standing at up to 1 meter in height. The antlers were short, with 2 small prongs projecting from the main branch. It is notable for being the earliest deer to possess the presence of a real burr, which are indicative of the border between permanent and deciduous segments of deer antlers. It possessed brachiodont teeth and likely fed on leaves. As with the previous formation, the Liushu Formation had several giraffid species closely related to giraffes and okapis, though they were not direct ancestors. Samotherium is represented by another species in this ecosystem. Despite its large size, this animal mainly fed on vegetation close to the ground. One common predator of this animal was the Amphimachairodus. Like the modern-day giraffe, Hyaenictitherium may have grazed on low-lying trees in the savanna environment, although its shorter neck shows that it probably fed on different plants than the extant giraffe. The living animal would have resembled a modern giraffe, but was somewhat shorter, with more massive ossicones. The skulls of both species had large nasal cavities, suggesting the living animals had broad, vaulted muzzles like those of the takin. During the late Miocene, the remains of the fossil horse Hipparion suggests that the Linxiavis basin were hot and semi-arid savanna environments. However, the anatomy of Ictitherium, though, suggests that the living animals lived in comparatively cold environments. It is probable that the living animals had adapted to living in mountainous areas that had formed during a phase of tectonic uplift in northwestern China at the beginning of the late Miocene. The same can be observed for Ictitherium and Hazengia. More species of the genus Gazella have been found in the plains. These animals were very abundant and prolific, supported by the fact that 4 different species were discovered in the same geological formation. They are fast and alert animals, making them difficult to capture for predators that are not stealthy enough. Miosurnia were most likely browsers, according to their fossilized teeth and jaw shape. They were likely to have lived near bodies of water, such as many antelope species today.